We're back.
Yes, it works.
The system works.
How you doing?
I know pretty good. I must confess that I've been using Wi-Fi for these podcasts for the past couple of weeks because the cable was just unplugged out of my dock. I've got to just,
Oh,
sometimes you unplug cables and then you're like, oh yeah, I'll plug that back in later after I'm done reorganizing.
and you just didn't notice.
Yeah, and 3 weeks ago I noticed the video quality on my end at least wasn't great, so I
Yeah,
apologize to our viewers.
but
I had
sometimes
a
it's
complaint
bad on
here.
my side, and it's had nothing to do with. I mean, I'm on a wired connection. Actually, am I on a wired connection right now?
There
I
we
am.
go.
I am.
So I checked, and it was certainly there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't plugged in. It was just missing. I
Mm,
apologize, folks, to our regular viewer.
yeah. I'm still waiting for the. So here on Bainbridge Island, there are two options for internet provider. There is
Right?
CenturyLink,
Okay.
and CenturyLink has their fastest for my neighborhood is a whopping 1.5 megabit download.
Oh wow, the year 2000 called.
Yeah,
Wants to
yeah,
send you that back.
exactly. And then there's also Xfinity. And with Xfinity, you got, they advertise that they're giving you a gigabit, and it is a gigabit download, but the upload is 30 megabit. So it's frustrating. There is another option. It's through the county. Kitsap County has a public utility district, and they provide. I think we pay them for like water, and they do some other services.
Right.
But they also now have fiber.
Hmm.
And if you're in an area where the cable is right there, you're
Right.
set. It's just
Right.
like, a few $100 to $1,000 for them to go from the cable on the road to your house, and
Right.
you're good to go. And then it's really cheap. We do not have such luck. You have to go up the hill but it's not that far. It's probably about half mile to
Okay.
3/4 a mile, and there is where the end of the line is, and they'll connect us down. And when I got a rough quote about a year ago, they were saying it would probably be about $30,000 to $40,000
Okay.
to bring that wire down. Now,
Okay.
if you find other people
That's
in
what I
your
was thinking. Like,
neighborhood,
how exactly? How many? I was quickly doing some math. How many people do I need? 40
yeah,
people?
exactly. So if you find some people along the way, we
Right.
can just add them to it. And it was suggested that maybe, if we do it and then somebody else decides to join, then they will pay
Or like
towards,
prorated? Okay.
and we'll get some of that money back,
Oh,
or
cool.
not have to pay as much. But they don't take, the 40,000 out of your account right away. They do like a lien against your home, and then you are gradually paying it as a monthly bill.
Okay.
Um, and it's just part of your monthly bill for the next 30 years or something. And it's
some
ends up,
person leaning on your home for 30 years.
yeah, I don't understand the details, or maybe they didn't even use that term. I don't know.
No, I
They put
think
something.
that's the right term. It's just a funny
Yeah,
term.
it's so yeah. It's spelled differently, LIEN or
Oh, okay. There
LEIN.
we go.
Yeah. And they and so it ends up you pay like basically what you pay to Comcast today, but that includes the cost of them bringing the line all the way down the street.
Gotcha.
But then that's even less if you get, a number of people to join you. And so we've got I gave them a list of about 6 of us who are interested in it. And so it hopefully we get a quote in the next few days or a week or so, and we can start moving forward and that will give us gigabit bidirectional, which is what I had in Boston, which was amazing when I had Fios from Verizon. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that.
The Matt Williams ISP.
Yes.
The WISP.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you would think with all we've got.
There's going to be a lot of tech people around there, right? I would assume.
I mean, neighbors up the street, like early Amazon,
right? Exactly.
Down the street, early Apple, there's like huge number, and all of them have founded so many other companies since then, I mean, I told you last week. I think we
Yeah,
had
yeah,
looked
yeah.
at a place that was the guy started WebEx. These are tech people, and yet we have this horrible. I mean, horrible. It is fantastic for large parts of the world. 35 megabit upload, gigabit download. It's amazing. So I'm not saying, it's such a hard life. It's pretty good, and I can still do this type of thing,
Right.
but it would be better to have
I
gigabit up.
I do wonder though, maybe we're missing something obvious. So these people who have done the startup thing and kind of hung up their
Hmm.
boots, maybe they don't want internet, or are
Yeah,
they on like Starlink or something? Like, is there
and
a
Starlink isn't that great.
okay, yeah, right. For upload anyway, right?
For upload, it's not that great. It's not. And so one of them is on Starlink, and
Okay.
he's uh, a a strong supporter of everything that is Tesla.
Okay.
So you know, it,
Well,
it'll take a little bit
listen.
of stretch to get him off of that system.
There are
But
certainly people in the community who agree with Elon 100%,
yes,
unfortunately.
yes, yes.
I try to take more of a like a less black and white approach, more of a
Yeah,
nuanced approach. It's difficult with us
yeah,
sometimes.
it is. It is. I look forward to the cage match.
So I wasn't gonna touch the cage match, but let's get into that a little bit. So it feels like, and I'm trying not to be really oh, how do you like, I don't want to be conspiracy theorist or anything around this. And you're already probably thinking like what's going on. It does feel like they're when you do a magic trick and you're like, look at the hand and you're doing something else over there. What else is going on during this
Yeah,
cage match that we don't know about, that they're trying to like get us to look this way for? Because it feels really contrived to me. It's very odd. It's not necessarily out of character for either of these people. And apparently Zuckerberg is like into MMA, so apparently this tracks. And Elon has a bit of an ego, and they probably both have a bit of an ego, so it totally tracks.
yeah,
It does make me wonder what else is going on though. Like if we're looking over here at a cage match between two IT tech bros, what else is happening? And I'm not. I hate to be that person. I'm just asking questions, but like, what kind of world have we come to where like this is the news, where two tech people are going to actually fight in bare hand combat in like a caged ring? Seems so odd to me. It's like dystopian.
yeah.
There's something. It feels like, what is that movie? Idiocracy. It feels like something out
Right.
of Idiocracy, where like I think it was a wrestling champion becomes the
Oh
president of
yeah.
the U.S. Yeah, two MMA champs become tech pro. I don't know. Something's going on. Maybe I'm reading too deep into it.
So yeah, I mean, I could see, depending on the person, the people that are involved, I could see, they're being, they're trying to hide something else. But then again, it's these two people. I mean, yeah, they're very wealthy. They're in charge of big companies, but are they that important to really be able to be doing something that's gonna be? I mean,
Okay,
not that.
so like, okay, rewind about 3 years. There was some stuff going on. Some billionaires were sending rockets to space just for funsies. Like all of this is happening, but don't worry, we're
Yes.
going to space to do
Yeah.
nothing and come
Yeah.
back.
Okay. Okay.
It just feels to me like it's some sort of like shock value entertainment. It's very
Sure.
odd. It's
Yep.
very, very odd. And at least the space stuff, there was some sort of like technological bravado, I guess, showing like, hey, it's still possible. Look what I can do. This is kind of amazing. I'm taking some of my wealth and I'm contributing back to humanity somehow by going to space. Like, yeah, I can kind of buy this, but the cage match, I mean, this is it. This is a step too far for me.
I,
Maybe if I liked MMA more, I'd be into this, but it just seems
are
very
there
odd.
other people that have like pseudo celebrities that have done this kind of thing?
There
There's some
have
like
been,
YouTuber or something.
I believe someone
Oh,
challenged Ronda Rousey to a fight on Twitter at one point in time, so
hmm,
maybe there's precedent.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
ah,
Wow.
sorry, that's all I
Um,
have for conspiracy theories. That's
yeah,
about
yeah.
as far as I go. Like I'm pretty tame.
That's good. That's good. But there's also other news. You mentioned just before we started that there was other news.
Yeah, so this is the part that I'm trying not to step into, but like basically, I'll explain the news as I understand it.
Hmm.
So CentOS, if you were a user back in the day, used to be the place you go to get sort of it's a bit of a pun, but the white box Linux kind of approach. White box being like another distro that existed where you could get packages from a stream that had already been vetted, and you could use them in your version of Linux to run not the Red Hat Enterprise Linux at home, but something similar to, with an experience similar to, with all the little wizards and things like that that Red Hat does to make the OS actually a little bit more easy to use. The ergonomics are improved. So CentOS, I think the understanding is like Red Hat took over CentOS and then transformed that offering into something called CentOS Stream, which is more like a live OS that regularly gets updates, but is unfortunately and I don't know, it's like the opposite of what people who wanted CentOS wanted. So they wanted something
Hmm.
stable that they could target without necessarily signing up for Red Hat. I think there's some ill will on the Red Hat part by calling their community freeloaders at the time, which really kind of rubbed people the wrong way. And I believe the same word was used again recently, which maybe put salt in the wound here. So essentially, what they're saying is that stream that you used to be able to get from the EPL, I believe, is where you grab the Red Hat packages and then be able to use them downstream and
Hmm.
other distros. For example, I think Alma Linux and Rocky are kind of those new CentOS-like operating systems, is also going away. So it's paywalled, and my understanding of the paywall is you have to sign up for a membership in order to get access to the source, and then you could then use the source to build your operating system. However, it looks like there's some stipulations that you're not supposed to be sharing the source outside of that community, and once you do, you could lose your membership, which makes me think that this is a little bit different than like the let's say the spirit of the GPL license, even though apparently it's not specifically verboten. Like it's not that you can't do this. You can't. It's not that you can't paywall source code. It's that the reactionary, like saying if someone shares it, then you're then going to take away their membership. I think might be where the line is actually. So
Right.
that might be a problem. The rest of this seems to be okay. I think in the community, though, a lot of people are just kind of fed up with IBM and Red Hat at this point in time because it's gotten a little bit. There's too many changes basically within one release cycle. They're not happy, and I get that. But there's other options out there, so they're looking at like, hey, is Ubuntu the option? Is Debian the option? What are we going to look at in terms of community support that also can be used by corporations?
Right.
Ubuntu seems like the easy decision, but again, I'm not a package maintainer, so I can't really say.
Yeah, I mean, I remember there was drama a year or two ago with CentOS and Red Hat, and I thought that kind of put the nails in their coffin. I didn't think Red Hat was like relevant anymore. There's
So one thing I haven't mentioned during all of this is like so
Podman, but
there is one relevant operating system, Oracle Unbreakable Linux. I'm not sure if you've ever used it, but they are downstream from Red Hat.
oh, okay.
So it kind of makes sense. Listen, having been in a company that swapped all of our kernels from like Red Hat to something else, I'm aware of the
Yeah.
difficulty of like taking a fleet that's in operation and swapping things out just to be able to get security packages. Because like if you're a year behind in like a big
Mm,
corporation, you're out of compliance. It is not pretty.
yeah.
Yeah, people are not happy with you. You have to do drastic measures basically. So we went through and like legitimately swapped out kernels
Mm,
in a bunch of running VMs, which is no fun. Never do that. But then again, like I guess this is the onus is on us. It was 2016. Some of our VMs were definitely pets instead of cattle. There was
yeah.
some crufts sticking around, which made it harder for us to do it. But when we're talking about like, I guess these days it should be pretty easy to swap out an OS if you're using like something that overlays on top of your operating system in order to get it up and running and run your business. The argument becomes a little bit more difficult for like signing up to Red Hat for one is not that hard, but you do have to go in and update the license on a regular basis, at least yearly. If not, in my experience, the developer license was every 3 months, which shouldn't be a lot, but it depends on how many machines you have at home, and it's
Hmm.
a little bit, it's kind of non-trivial, unfortunately. And maybe there's a better solution out there now, but when I tried out the alternative that they're offering, I think it's 16 licenses that you can get now as a Red Hat developer once you sign up and pay whatever fee. Even just updating those licenses was not fun. So I'd opt out of it, but
Yeah.
maybe that's just me. Yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
What are you in? Do you use Debian-based operating systems? Because that's kind of where I'm at this point in time.
Yeah, I tend to go. I mean, either Debian, or install Debian or
Okay.
Ubuntu. Do a lot of Ubuntu. The feature I really like about, I mean, just it's a simple thing. The
Mhm.
fact that during the install of Ubuntu, it asks you, "Would you like to grab your SSH key
Your
from
GitHub
GitHub?"
username, yes,
I
it's
mean, that's amazing.
phenomenal. It's
That's
phenomenal,
amazing.
and it's in their cloud init. So if you want to actually like put
Yeah,
it into like a USB key before you start up a ton of Raspberry Pis,
yeah.
case in point for me, it'll go to GitHub and grab that key for you on all these machines. You don't have to do
Hmm.
anything. No logins, no nothing. You can randomize all that stuff.
Yep.
Host name doesn't matter. Find it on your network, log into it using your SSH key. You're done. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It
Yeah.
it is a game changer. Totally agree. I was talking about this the other day, and it's like one of those features that seems really simple, but is
Yeah.
incredibly powerful once you get
Incredible.
it working. Yeah, totally agree. Totally
Yeah.
agree. It just takes all of that like hand holding. Sorry,
Hmm.
all of that need for hand holding out of it. It's
Sure.
very simple.
And I mean, the only other OS I've used occasionally, just because I don't even know why I did. I think I was like trying it out one day, and at the same time, I needed to set up the laptops for our demo stations at a conference for infra, and I loaded up Rocky, and
Right.
so I think Rocky is running on those laptops. Um, Actually, I don't know. Yeah. Oh, it's in a VM.
That's what I do too. I've got
Yeah.
Rocky in a VM whenever I need like a proper Linux system.
and and yeah, so and that works well. But by the way, what VM? I mean, because you're on a Mac, you're on an M1 Mac, right? What? Oh, you're not on an M1 Mac?
I
You're on
am. I am. I
okay.
just I know what I'm gonna say and I don't like it. So what I was using was Project Pacifica, I believe, from VMware, which was free at the time, but shouldn't have
Mm,
been used for commercial use. So like I'm not using it any longer.
hmm.
I oh I forgot it. The name is so bad though of the thing that I'm using. I don't even remember it. Is it like is it called just VMs or virtual or something? It's got like a really bad name. A very
Oh,
forgettable
it's like
name.
a three-letter one.
No, it's not that one. I tried that as well. My apologies. I'm just finding in my list here of apps that I've got installed, but it's one of those just sort of free
Oh, okay.
VM machines that came out when the M1 craze was there and VMware hadn't
Right.
filled the
Yeah.
gap yet.
I mean, I've tried VMware more recently, and I just couldn't get it to function right, function well. And so I've been using Parallels. I mean,
Oh, okay.
and it works great. I mean, for our three demo laptops. I mean, I bought three licenses for Parallels, and on for my laptop. I mean, I also have a license for Parallels, and it works out really well. And I mean, it just works. It's so many of the other tools, they're kludgy and feel
A
rough.
Absolutely. Okay, so I had 2 installed, which is kinda what I thought was gonna happen. So I don't really have an answer for you either, which is why
Yeah.
I'm kind of, like, embarrassed because, like, this should be something that I just got down pat, but I don't. I haven't found it yet. VMware, I do personally have a license for, but I
Hmm.
feel like taking the personal license on the corporate laptop is a bad
Hmm.
idea. I don't own an M anything system yet, which is
Mm.
also kind of embarrassing because I really want one.
Right.
So, Virtual Buddy is what I found was easy to use,
Hmm.
but wasn't necessarily very fast. And
Mm.
specifically, one of my use cases is having like virtual Mac machines because we do have Mac monitoring.
Right.
I do like Mac automation. I do like running scripts and stuff like that for it. I haven't found a solution for it, and it's incredibly frustrating because VMware just points at the recovery machine and then just loads up a VM for you within, I want to say seconds. It's really,
Mm.
really fast. And
Mm.
there's nothing like that. So Virtual Buddy is the first one I was using, and
Right.
UTM is the other one. And UTM
That's right.
is awful. Like, I
Yeah.
love it, don't get me it's free.
It's amazing, but it's terrible. Yeah.
Oh, man, the onboarding is really
Yeah.
bad, and it's not just that it's bad, it's like it's shared toil, which I think fundamentally really bothers me, and what I mean by this is that everyone has to go through the same freaking steps to
Yeah.
get the same VM.
Right.
Ergo, perhaps we could, like, create a wizard or do something for that or a
Yeah.
script or maybe share a VM, but, like so
Yeah.
within our company, Datadog, we do have, I believe, like, shared scripts or whatever, like a happy
Hmm.
path basically to get you up to
Right.
speed in UTM, which is awesome. However, I feel like this should be some of those something that should be built into the app, built into the OS, or
Hmm.
like built into the way it boots essentially.
Hmm.
But it is a bit of a pain to get up and running.
Yeah.
Not to mention like So what I need in a VM system is Windows, Mac, and Linux. I need all three, and I
Hmm.
want it to work perfectly fine. And Parallels
Hmm.
honestly does look really appealing because it's kind
Yeah.
of like a two-click process to get
Yeah.
most of this stuff up and running, which is awesome. And that's what you want. You just
Yeah.
want to like set up your VM, take a snapshot, turn things on. When you come back to it, have it still be there.
Right.
That's
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely cheaper ways to do it, but they're going to cause you pain every time you use it.
that's right.
And if I have can pay, I don't remember what it was, $100,
Probably
120 bucks,
$100.
some,
Yeah,
yeah. If I can pay that once, and I paid that 6 months ago or
right.
whatever it was, and now it just works,
Just
and
turn
now I
it
can
back.
focus on using my skills for something that I can focus on something else, so something I actually want to do rather than manage this VM.
Absolutely. And I think the corporate kind of answer is that, like, listen, most of this stuff should be cloud based anyway. You can just have
Hmm.
VMs and get them running. And,
Yep.
and honestly, for most of what we're talking about, it's fine. For some of the stuff I want to do, specifically with Packer, is like to write Ansible scripts for some
Yeah.
random OS. It honestly has
Yeah.
not a lot to do with work. It's
Yeah.
similar to like me and CentOS. Like, I just want to like mess around in the open source community and help people get BSD running
Yeah.
on a VM with a script kind of thing. That kind of stuff I actually enjoy in the open source
Yeah.
community. Sort of like setting up those little scripts that help people, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And I feel like the on ramp to get to where I was in terms of productivity is a little bit more steep than I'm used to. So I just
Hmm.
haven't done anything, which is terrible because newer versions of Mac OS has come out. I'll write a new script for each OS just to like
Yeah.
and get rid of all the garbage in your
Yeah.
taskbar, turn off like some of the weird stuff that doesn't need to be running. I turn
Hmm.
off natural scrolling, all the little creature comforts that you're used to. I'm a reverse scrolling person, and I want every OS I like log on to be that way. This is just the way I am. But other things like just install Spotify for me, or like VS
Yeah.
Code or something like that, or maybe the Datadog agent. What does that look like? How do we
Right.
automate it this way? It helps you with the process. I find the more I
Yeah.
use it, the more I find little wrinkles
Right.
and fun stuff. But anyway, not doing any of this work
Yeah.
because I'm too lazy to figure out how to use UTM properly, or Virtual Buddy, or
Yeah.
maybe like pay a personal license for a corporate computer. There's a whole bunch of stuff there.
Hmm.
So yeah, at this point in time, UTM is what I should be learning to use, and I've just avoided doing it. My apologies.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I'm losing some geek cred here.
I don't think so.
And does Parallel still have that? It had this really cool way of doing apps where they could like kind of float on top of back, so you could like. Does that still exist?
Yes,
Okay.
it does. It is one of the more annoying. I find it to be super annoying because sometimes I've got I don't know what it would be, some app that exists on both the Mac and on, say, Windows,
Right.
and
Like
and
Chrome.
so I do the quick, bring up Alfred or Raycast or whatever, and type in what I want, and it
Right.
has the two of them next to each other. Now I have to look at the path. Well, which no, I don't want that one. I want this one. And then sometimes I click the wrong one, and now I'm starting up a VM so I can just load up, I don't know, some browser.
And then the
Like,
next time you search, it's gonna launch it again because that was the last one that you
yeah,
used.
yeah. Oh, I think it was like Edge, because Edge is on Windows
Yeah,
and
yeah,
is on my Mac.
yeah.
It's like, oh, I've just slowed it down further.
So popping into sure, I can't even talk. Show notes is Raycast. I actually had maybe we talked about this before, but this looks pretty sweet because I'm still using Spotlight, which
Oh,
yeah,
garbage.
yeah. Well, it's not great. It's got
So
issues.
I would say, I mean, yeah, there's Raycast, which has definitely gotten more of the love recently.
Okay.
It is, I think it's still catching up to what Alfred has. And Alfred has been around. I mean, Alfred's
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
along forever. Um, I think I'm either the first or the second person that officially paid for it
For
in the
Alfred.
world. In the world, yeah.
So this must be
Because
just
when he was testing out the payment platform, mine was like the first or second card he ran.
that's awesome.
So yeah,
I liked it so much. I bought the Power Pack way back when.
yeah, yeah.
I've certainly used it a lot.
Um, but and I mean, I don't use a whole lot of workflows in Alfred, but it's just cleaner, and I was glad that they finally added like double taps of keys into Raycast for bringing up
Oh,
something
that's
like
cool.
I'll bring up like the keyboard, sorry, clipboard manager with a double tap of, I don't even know what they use, control, double tap control, and it brings, or command, and it brings up the keyboard, the clipboard manager. And that recently started working in Raycast, like in the last couple months, 3 months. But and there's a bunch of other features that are, I think it's almost on par with Alfred.
Okay. So
But
one of the big things for me for Alfred as a multi-computer user was being able to. I think the reason I bought the Power Pack was to sync the settings between
mhm,
computers. Can
yeah,
Raycast do that? Because that was like a big deal
I
for
don't
me.
know. I
Okay.
don't know.
And here we go into the toil discussion. So let me
Mm.
ask, Matt, when you set up a new Mac, do you have like a script you run? Because this is what I'm talking about. I maintain like a personal script that I share with the world because I'm nice. But like, how does Matt set up Matt's laptop?
Yeah, I have a script that I create every time that I always create the day after I create a new machine.
Okay,
Because I find that the script I created last time no longer works
always.
because, yeah, and so I was like, why did I have this script? Okay, let me update it so now it'll work. And then a new machine will come along. It's like, that doesn't work.
Yeah, we don't use Bash anymore, Matt. We're on ZSH show.
Yeah, yeah. I don't live in the past with ZSH.
So you have to install something. Then the question is like, is it homebrew? Is that how you bootstrap everything? Because like that's what I used
So
to do.
yeah, I mean, so Homebrew is good, but then and there's also the Mass
Yeah,
add-on to
Mac App
Homebrew,
Store installer. Yeah,
which will install, yeah, those apps. But even then, sometimes I find that I have to actually install it through the Mac App Store. It doesn't. There's some things where it just needs the full Mac
there are a
App
couple.
Store.
Yeah.
Um, and I never remember which ones they are, so I just kind of have my list of things to. And so I guess it's uh the first one that within the first few
Mhm.
is always going to be 1Password.
Okay. Makes
Um
sense. Yeah.
and I've been using that for ages. And when I was at Datadog, I had a whole bunch of vaults that were Datadog specific, and at Infra, a bunch of Infra vaults. So it's been used by the last few companies I've been at, and I have a family. I'm on a family plan, so
Great. Me too.
my wife uses it, my mother uses it, my mother-in-law, maybe not
Maybe
mother-in-law,
not.
but
Not that
yeah.
far. Close.
um, but yeah, so a bunch of people use it, and I can bring up, and it's just super convenient. So that's going to be one of the first, because I have to enter in a lot of passwords as I'm trying to install things. And what else? And then it's going to be Brew, and then all the tools that Brew, are used by Brew, um, and then fumbling around looking for, well, where do I install these tools? I mean, Alfred is an early one, but it's not like the first, or even the top 5 or 10.
Really?
Um, and on this machine that I'm running right now, this is an M1 Mac Mini.
Mhm.
So my work machine is over there. But this is one that I just used for. Originally, we bought this M1 Mini because I wanted to see what it was like. But we wanted to have like a scanning station, like a mail scanning station. So
Right.
when mail comes in, we scan it and we shred it right away. It's like, that
Nice.
would be perfect.
Nice.
It didn't really work out quite as well as I'd hoped, because it was going to be in the laundry room, but then you need a monitor, and it was always bulky, and monitor kept sliding out of the way. I was just, and we ended up switching things around, so that this Mac Mini became like, oh, nobody's using it, so let me use it for this kind of streaming
Right.
workstation. And but it doesn't have most of the tools. I mean, so I guess 1Password and then Obsidian, because that's my note-taking tool for everything, and it's on all the platforms, so it's great.
Browser.
Arc. And although, I mean, Safari will work for the first few things that you do.
Will
So
it?
I'm not in a huge rush to replace Safari.
I am. The ads in Safari and, like, the weirdness around extensions just I can't
Mhm.
anymore. As much as I don't mind Safari, I that
So are there extensions that you make sure are always installed?
so, I use 1Password as well as LastPass, so
Mm,
that's one of the extensions. The other one is I think it's called the AdBlock Plus now. It's changed names
mm,
a couple times in terms of, like,
yeah,
which one I use, but, like, that extension.
yep.
I think that's kinda it. There's some weird stuff from Universal Audio that depends on the machine that I'm
Mm,
hearing, but
mhm,
that's about it. I mean, honestly, the biggest thing for me is just getting some of the stuff from the App Store installed because a lot of
yeah,
my apps are in there. Again, much to my chagrin, but I actually do own some in there.
yeah.
And some of it's, like, really messy, like, Microsoft Remote Desktop has 2 published apps, and one of them has a TM and one of them doesn't. So I end up having to install it using the ID in the App Store, which is, like, a whole thing. 'Cause normally
Mm,
you can search by name, grab the ID
right,
in awk or something, and pass it on to MAS, and it will
right.
install it for you. This is not one of them. You need to know the actual ID. And
Mhm,
then I think for me, I'm installing Chrome, but I don't know. These days, I'm using Edge more and more, so I don't those
mm,
are kinda like the first sort of ones to get up and running. I was like, yeah, MAS, so
yep,
brew, then MAS, then anything I've
yep,
got in there, and then I'm very, very carefully install stuff using Homebrew because I
yeah,
found that, like, that package list tends to get really, really long, and I do
yeah,
change opinions pretty quickly in terms of, like, which one I wanna use or not
right.
use. Um, but Mac App Store also has, like, mobile apps as well, so
Mhm,
it's a mess.
yeah,
I've got no easy answer. I guess Creative Cloud might be like the next thing I actually install in terms of productivity. I use a
mm,
lot of Creative Cloud apps, both for business, business license, and personal.
yeah,
So at least getting it set up so I can sign in and grab the rest of the
right,
apps, I guess, is the main thing.
yep,
I don't know. I used to have so many things that I installed, and these days it feels like that number is quickly diminishing
mhm,
down to like
mhm,
that sort of set of first party apps, which is pretty big
yep,
on the Apple side in terms of what I can use, and then maybe like OmniGraffle is one of the ones that I can't live
mm,
without. But again, these days I'm using more Cloudcraft stuff, so I don't
mhm,
know. It's really hard to say like what I like. It changes year to year.
yeah,
It shouldn't, but it does. Like Sublime Text is always installed, and I'm not even joking. We were talking
really,
about this, like, in terms
yeah,
of
yeah,
editors versus IDEs, but Sublime still gets
yeah,
installs. I still install, like, Toad. I don't know if you ever used Toad. I've
no,
got an old Toad license. I haven't used Toad in years, but it's like a DBA tool. It allows you to
oh,
connect to
okay,
a database and, like, select some rows and stuff like that. But I'm just looking through the apps that I've got installed, and there's things in here that, like, like Zoom and Visual Studio Code, I guess, are newer kind of apps that
mhm,
made it into the list that I wouldn't normally have installed. But Visual Studio Code is like the IDE that I use all the time.
mhm,
For lack of a better IDE,
right,
IntelliJ Toolbox oh, yeah, I think it's IntelliJ Toolbox is
hmm,
installed with a bunch of apps as well.
hmm,
Yeah. Sorry,
hmm,
this pretty vanilla stuff, honestly. There's
yeah,
nothing really
yeah.
surprising in here.
Well, 2, plugins that although I just looked and they're not installed on this machine, but,
There you go.
I mean, 2 that I find super useful on my main machine
Yeah.
are just around taking notes,
Okay.
and so, I use Obsidian for my
Right.
note-taking tool. I also use Readwise, which is a kind of, it will synchronize, it will take all the notes off of your Kindle and put them
Right.
into one place for all your notes, but then also, um, I use a tool called Memex,
Right.
which will, kind of a highlighter, and that will also synchronize with Readwise. And
Right.
then I also use a tool called I think it's called Tuber's Lab.
Oh,
It's a YouTube note taking, and so as you're watching, as soon as you start typing, it pauses the video and starts letting you take your notes, and then you press the Alt key or Option key, and it restarts or continues playing the video from where
hmm.
you left off. And then as soon as you start typing, it stops the video and lets you take the note, lets you formulate that thought, and then
Hmm.
that will also synchronize with Readwise. So now all the notes for videos and articles and books are all in Readwise. There is an official integration from Readwise into Obsidian, but
Right.
it's kind of garbage. And so I use one that I created myself that synchronizes to Obsidian. That way, I can also add to the note file myself. And when it resynchronizes, it synchronizes around my notes rather than
Right.
overwriting it.
That's
So,
really cool.
yeah.
I've got some bad news for you though. Tubers Lab, when I pulled it up for the show notes, it looks like it's shutting down. Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Maybe I have a different one.
Tuberslab, all one word.com. Oh no, this is the second time this happened to you on this podcast. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it said they had over 12,000 members with at least 600 daily active users. Yeah, and basically that Baban doesn't think that they'll be able to. Yeah, different Tubers Lab.
What?
Tuberslab.com. Maybe it's a different one. It could be a different one. I apologize if I misspoke. Is it this one? Different one? Now I feel like a heel if it's a different project.
Huh.
It says in red, but we're shutting down. Building.
Yeah, no, I see that on there. But on the Tubers Lab notepad thing on the Chrome Web Store,
oh, nothing.
It says nothing about that.
Oh, maybe it won't shut down. It does look really handy, though. I like this.
Yeah.
I think there's also a little bit about Chrome extensions going away, too. Is that not correct? At some point in time, because I know, again, because of ad blocking, it's not that I hate ads. It's just that I find them very distracting. Sorry, I didn't mean to nerd snipe.
No, I don't know if it's the same thing.
Maybe it's different.
Yeah.
Maybe these are two different things.
Huh.
It seems to be the same. You press space to type and then read notes and share. Install the extension.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just this website and not the extension.
That's possible.
So I'm not really using the website. I am just using the extension.
Fair enough. Huh? Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
I think the other. Can you pay for extensions? Is that a thing? I know you can get an extension that requires a login, and then you can pay to have the login be up to date. But I haven't seen any paid extensions. And I feel like that's one of the things Google's trying to move towards is an area where you can pay to buy stuff.
Right. Well, actually, no. I'm looking now, and it says the email address associated with the extension is the same person.
Okay.
So
the link to the extension seemed to go to the same extension from.
Yeah. Interesting.
Oh, it sucks.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, it actually looks like a really cool app. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Okay. Well, thanks.
Because obviously, as soon as I heard about it, I was like, "Hey, that sounds really handy." Because I'm always watching YouTube and writing notes.
Right.
It's like a big part of the way I learn. I'm assuming you're the same way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks.
You're welcome. Question mark. I'm so sorry about that.
No problem.
But I do find that, as we're talking about tools, I do find that way that people set up their systems is very interesting to me. Is that it's not that everyone has the same tools, but they kind of have the same goals. So they've got certain ways, like right click, for example. I want it to be on the bottom right of my trackpad. I know some people who prefer the 3-finger click, for example, or 2-finger click.
2 fingers.
I think it's 2 fingers. Yeah.
Yeah. The only way that makes sense.
Everyone's got opinions. The other is
one way to scroll up and down.
Right, exactly.
I don't know whether it's natural or whatever, but I mean, there's whatever it's called. That's the one way that should be.
That's the one way. It should be the same on every operating system, right?
Absolutely.
but it's not. The other is hot corners. Like for the life of me, I'm not a fan of hot corners, and I think they're on
No.
by default now. They need to be turned off. If I'm
Yeah.
presenting something and I go to
Yeah.
a corner and something pops up, it's like absolutely
Yeah.
not.
I turn that off, although I have it turned on in Better Touch Tool, I think. And there you can have it based on, you go into that corner twice, or
That's
you
much better.
press another key and it does one thing, press a different key and just swipe over and it does something else.
Now this is in the weeds a little bit, but it doesn't happen again in other operating systems. When I move my mouse onto another monitor, I do not ever want the dock to follow me. Now this property has changed quite a bit in the past, but
Hmm.
I do not want the dock to get stuck on a screen. And then
Hmm.
maybe even the worst part is like bringing it back to the screen it was on before is very difficult. So I've got like a little sudo kill all dock that will just like relaunch it because I really just want the dock to be back where it should be. Just because I moused around the bottom of another screen doesn't mean it should move. It's very,
I
very
don't
annoying.
I don't understand this. I mean, so you use the dock?
Yeah, right, exactly. It's not even that I use the dock. It's just that it's like, why is it in the way? I need that screen
I
real estate.
I hide it and never look at it.
That's pretty smart. Maybe I need to do that. It's just like get rid of it because
Yeah.
yeah, I understand
I
people
mean,
like to mouse down there and click on stuff, but
oh yeah, I guess there's the dock down there. Huh.
do not need.
I don't ever pay attention. In fact, if I could delete it, I would just. I think there's a way I could just get rid of it completely, but I think there's some apps that only show up in the dock, and so
Oh, is the trash one of them? The trash used to be one of those things that you could
well, I
only
don't
find in the
care about the
dock.
trash.
Well,
I just
geez.
delete stuff.
And just hope for the best because it doesn't delete things either. This is
Well,
the
then
whole
you
other
clean out
thing.
the trash, but I don't use the dock.
How do you clean up the trash without? Yeah, I mean, you can do it in the command line.
Um,
There's some
I
puzzling
think I
going
just
on.
do it from Alfred.
Right. Okay. There we go. But you see what I'm saying? Like your way of using the same
Yeah,
operating
is
system
the
is
right way.
completely different. Yeah, the right way. The one true way, TM.
The one true way. Yeah, Matt's way. Yeah.
And
It's
I
like
guess, yeah, go
I
ahead.
remember I mean sort of related. I remember when Office XP came out. One of the internal story XP or 2000
2003 was it
um
that had the ribbon?
whichever I think it might have been 2003 time frame. That's what I mean. I was at Microsoft at the time, and the story was, Microsoft had all sorts of focus groups to figure out, well, what are the main features that people really
Right.
like? Because it's getting kind of bloated. How
Right.
can we get rid of all these features that nobody uses?
Right.
Because everybody just uses, like 5, 10, 15 features, and let's just go down to those main features that everybody uses. And they asked, 1,000 people, 10,000, whatever, huge number of people, and everybody had their 10 features, except nobody had the same 10 features.
Of course.
And so everybody absolutely relies on, and you better not remove the
Right.
10 features that are most important to me, which obviously are important to everyone else, except, some people will say mail merge, and I never used mail merge. Who cares about mail merge? Get rid of that.
Yeah.
It doesn't belong in the tool. And other things. Yeah.
I do remember because the ribbon hid a bunch of stuff that was
Mm-hmm.
there by default with the goal being to improve screen real estate because I think we changed aspect ratios around that time as well. We went from screens that were more square to ones that
Square,
were
yeah.
more kind of rectangular
3 by
and
3 by
long.
4 to 16 by 9.
Yeah, and I think we actually lost screen real estate. So instead of being like 720 or something like that, I made it
Mm,
6 something. So
yeah,
you lost pixels, so you wouldn't be able to see like
yeah,
what was there before. Blah 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 blah. And the brilliant idea was to make the toolbar collapsible. Again, not a bad idea. But when you collapsed it, what it showed you by default
right.
generally ticked off
Yeah,
everybody. So
yeah,
100% of people were mad that like
yeah,
one thing they always used was now 3 clicks away.
right,
Which, yeah, I'll remember. And then later on, you could then pin the ribbon because people wanted that too. Like, I don't need it to move. But then the ribbon
right.
was actually really big because it included more stuff than before. So it was this large toolbar.
Yep.
Uh, I don't know.
Hey, we've got a hard cutoff in like 15 minutes, and we haven't talked about the thing that we said we were going to talk about.
Next week we have a hard cutoff. I got time today.
Oh,
We
today
can talk.
you're fine.
We can talk. Is this a Canadian US thing? When I say next Wednesday, does that mean like the Wednesday that's coming or the one after
I,
is next
I
Wednesday?
ignored the word next. I just saw Wednesday. I have a hard cutoff, and I think you. No, not Wednesday. Today is Tuesday. So
Yeah,
if you have a hard cutoff on Wednesday, I don't care.
exactly.
Except I do care because you all I saw was I have a hard cutoff at 3.
Yeah, like the relevance to me must be, yeah, I think I got the wrong day. It probably doesn't even matter to you because it's
Yeah.
Wednesday. But
Oh.
okay, so a couple things about this because okay, so Tuesday next week is July 4th, right?
Oh yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
I was assuming that maybe you didn't want a podcast on a Tuesday anyway.
That's correct. I'm gonna be grilling burgers.
And that's kind of what I was getting into. So
Yeah.
because as a Canadian, I actually don't understand U.S. customs very well. Do you watch sports on July 4th? Like what?
As an American, I don't understand American customs that well.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of American people. There's like an average American that I think watches football on July 4th.
Yeah.
Is there a football game on the? No, you don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
Football?
Yeah,
People still play football?
I think sports ball is still pretty popular.
I think I don't know. Except it's not a ball, is it? It's not round.
Well, it's kind of like an egg,
Oblong? I don't
hand
know.
egg. Yeah.
Pointy eggs. Yeah.
What about baseball? Do people play baseball?
Yeah, I think that's the
July
thing.
4th? Okay. Okay.
I think actually Seattle, I think, has a good team too. The Mariners. I don't know,
Yeah, I've heard.
or
They're
maybe
okay.
they were.
And then you have to
I
grill
don't know.
meat, right? This is.
Yes,
I feel
Yeah,
like
that
I'm an
part-
alien.
that part I'm good with. That part I'm good with. So we've got a fancy grill,
Fireworks.
and huh?
You got to set stuff on fire, right? If it doesn't go boom, it's not American.
Yeah. Well, I actually sometimes it does go because I mean the grill I have has gas below, but the gas is really just to light the charcoal the wood.
Okay.
And so sometimes sometimes gas settings are wrong and they go you see a little big fireball.
That's fun. That's just
It's great.
Those eyebrows will grow back.
Yeah.
I did that when I was younger, and I've been afraid of barbecues for that reason for a long time. Because the first time you did it, that ball of flame is very frightening.
Yeah. I did it in the stupidest way possible. Also, when I was younger in college. I mean, so you think, okay, college, you're smart enough to like not do such stupid things, but then there's always college kids that do stupid things.
Of course.
And so I found the straight part of a U-lock.
Okay.
Like in the bicycle area.
Yep.
But it didn't have the U part attached. Okay. And so for some reason I grabbed it and like, oh, that might be useful for something. I don't know. Okay. And then I thought, oh, what should I put in here? Oh, let me get my dry idea of antiperspirant and just spray it in there for a little while. Huh, now I've got all this stuff. What if I light it?
Oh no, it's like a mini pipe bomb. Am I right? This sounds awful.
This is such a stupid idea.
Were you okay?
What was I thinking? There's this ball of flame that shoots out of it.
Of course.
I mean, it was like a ball of flame, and it was.
Well, at least it didn't explode. Yeah, I guess it wasn't sealed. Okay.
It was easily about 3 or 4 foot round. This ball of flame in my dorm room. How stupid could I be? In my dorm room, I light off this thing, and it goes boom. Oh. And people down the hall were like, "Does anybody smell that? It's like burning hair or something."
Yeah, Matt burned his hair off.
And I did. It just burned all the hairs off the front of my legs.
That's weird. Well, at least you didn't burn your skin, I guess.
Yeah, I know. I was just like, man, like every part of. I mean, this is one of those among the like 2 or 3 stupidest things I've ever done.
It's up there. This is also one of those stories where it's not just one mistake; it's like 2 or 3 compounded that make these stories. One, you grabbed it for no reason. 2, you're spraying antiperspirant in there just for funsies.
That's what people do.
Also okay. The third one, lighting it though. The pièce de résistance.
A series of bad decisions.
Yeah, cherry on top. Yes.
Yeah. It's like whenever you see the drive along the highway and you see those the guardrails on the side of the road, and you think, I wonder what it's like to jump from post to post to post. I'm sure everybody's thought that. And if you find yourself stuck on the side of the road with a flat tire, and the rest of the rowing team goes off to find a tire iron and a spare tire to replace the tire on the rowing on the trailer with all the boats on it,
Right.
and you happen to be sitting on the side of the road, bored to tears,
Right.
waiting for this car to come back,
Mhm.
think, oh yeah, sure, I'm going to jump from post to post on this guardrail until one of the posts isn't really seated correctly and spins, and then I fall off, bump myself without
Sorry,
really.
you had me until I. This was a fictional scenario until you said I.
And
I
so
was waiting.
I bumped my leg into this post, not really, and I just kind of stood there. It's like, oh,
Did you
that's
break
weird.
your leg?
And I'm standing there, no problem. And then one of the other guys said, dude, look at your leg.
Oh, is it split? Oh no.
And it's like open. There's like this open wound, and
That.
so the car got back with the tire iron and the spare tire, and had to leave that behind while whoever was driving had to make the next run, of which was me driving me to the emergency room, so to get my leg stapled shut.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that was a long day. I think we were going from Miami back to Tallahassee because
right.
there was some regatta.
I forgot this tracks. This is Florida man territory.
Yeah.
Both of these
Yeah.
stories are very within the realm of Florida man.
So the dorm that I almost blew myself up in was at Florida State. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
This is all within the Venn diagram of things I expected of Florida.
Yeah. Yeah. So
the reason I asked is because I think for Canada Day we're going to go to the US and celebrate it there, which is like that's what you do, right? You just leave the country.
Yeah.
I don't know about the US, but at least in Canada, our Canada Day during COVID was it's been mired with some other stuff. We've had like residential school issues and things like that, finding dead buried under schools and stuff, and we kind of denounced Canada Day for a little bit there because the government didn't want to say anything. And listen, again, I don't want to get too political, but in terms of celebrating Canada Day, I feel like I can do it outside of Canada. So we're going to go back to beautiful Washington State, probably. Maybe go to Mount Baker again. We went last weekend, but it was still kind of closed, so we're gonna check that out. But it's again, like, American parks are amazing. You can drive up to the top of mountains, fully paved, like beautiful paved roads. In Canada, there's nothing like this that I know of. It is phenomenal. So we're probably gonna do something like that over the weekend because it's a long.
It's beautiful driving up to the top of Whistler or by Whistler.
Well, you can't drive up to the peak in the U.S. You can drive up to the peak of mountains. Just pave right up to the top. We were looking at Mount St. Helens on Google Maps, for example, and it's paved pretty much to the top. Like you can drive right up to the top.
Go to the top.
You can go to the peak that's right next to it. You can drive up to the top, open your car window, look out at Mount St. Helens and be like, oh yeah, I saw that, and then drive back. You don't need to do anything else. The Google Street View from the parking lot clearly shows Mount St. Helens displayed in all of its splendor. Right for you right there. It's phenomenal.
Oh, but you can't go to the top of Mount St. Helens.
Some people have because there's Google Street View of it, so I assume they have. But I'm not sure.
I think it's like hikers taking a camera up to there.
Got to be right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not paved all the way up to because it's not. It's a bit of a ridge. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're talking. It looks like a 15-minute walk over to the base, which is crazy. It's so good. It's just wild. It's incredibly wild to me.
Wow.
But yeah, that is our patriotic celebration because of course our vacation is different than yours. Ours is the 1st, yours is the 4th.
Right.
We get Friday off. I assume you get Monday and Tuesday off, or is it just Tuesday?
I don't know. Usually I find out about vacations the day of the vacation, and
this is how I don't show up to podcasts. We are of the same ilk. This is how I don't show up to Tuesday podcast sometimes. See, you didn't even know that July 4th.
I did not know. I kind of knew it was next week, but I didn't. Yeah.
No, you don't. And I am realizing, yes, I did in fact mean Tuesday next week. I am going to the studio to take photos of somebody. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But I assume you don't want a podcast next week either.
Let's not do it.
All right. We can skip this one. we're running pretty late on time here. Were there any checkouts that you had that we should look at? Because I got a couple things I can recommend.
I was thinking about it, and I don't actually have anything new.
Oh,
Um,
that's incredible to me.
yeah, 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 I don't have anything new. Although as I'm sitting here and I'm just like, my hand is sitting on something and it's just kind of playing with it, and I realize saying, oh, I've never mentioned this, and this is really cool.
What is it?
It's a tape measure.
Oh wow, I've never seen one of those before.
It's a tape measure by a
It
company
only
called,
measures.
yes, it's made by a company called Hoto,
Okay.
which I think is actually part of Samsung, or I don't know, but it's like they also do a screwdriver, which is like really nice.
Oh,
But
nice.
what's nice about it is that it is you have to press the button to open it up,
Okay.
and then as soon as you let go, it's stopped. But it's really nice because you can use I think you can write on it with a pencil. And so if you want to make a note of, well, how long is something, and not have to remember, oh, 6 inches, 6 inches, 6 inches,
That's
you can
pretty
just get
cool.
that pencil and just like mark there, and then smear it off.
Oh,
So and so it's marked with all the markings that you need. It's only about 10 feet, but it's a nice, and it feels it will I mean, if it falls on a concrete floor, it's probably not going to survive,
right.
but it's really nice as far as tape measures go. It's got all the tape measure things, like markings for where the studs are, but also really nice markings of the number of inches. And so another neat thing is that it's in inches and centimeters.
Which is pretty important. Yeah.
Um, and so often a lot of American ones are just inches.
Right.
And then it is also marked with not only usually it has a marking for 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot,
Right.
and then at say 1 foot 2 inches, it's going to have a 14 next to it, or 14, and that's it, and not 1 foot 2 inches. And this also says 1 foot 2 inches, in case you don't want to do the math, modulo math, to figure out what's the remainder of
Right.
36 divided by 12, or 38 divided by 12. And so it's really nice, and it's got all the markings you'd expect, and it's it's really cool.
That's really
So
neat. Yeah,
that's my
self-locking.
huh yeah
Self-locking looks very cool.
yeah. I don't remember what it cost, but
Looks like 15.
yeah, okay. I mean, you can get cheaper all metal ones from the hardware store that are just going to be 30 feet in inches. But
Yeah, $15.
For just a quick test of the Stream Deck is 7 inches wide. That's cool.
Good to know.
Yeah.
I don't have anything super exciting, but the one thing that I've been playing around with a lot is it sort of, and this is maybe late to me. Everyone else has seen it before, but FinOps as an idea, FinOps, sorry, as an idea, I've known about. I somehow didn't realize that there's a FinOps Foundation that's under the CNCF, or sorry, Linux Foundation, I believe, is who has it, because it's like an LF project, and then under there is FinOps. So similar to CNCF, but I guess adjacent to it. Would be the FinOps Foundation. So it's just finops.org. It's actually got quite a bit of pretty good content in here in terms of like, if you're thinking about cost savings and management within an organization, and like what that maturity means, and how to get to a place that is mature, or think about it. It's actually got a ton of content that's completely free. There's certifications and stuff like that like I didn't really look at too much, but there is like a learn.finops.org as well. And I actually thought it was pretty good in terms of like something that's completely new to me as a subject. Pretty easy way to get up to speed quickly. It's very similar to the CNCF as far as I can tell, and yeah, ton of good content.
Wow. Okay. So what is the definition of FinOps?
Oh, this is like DevOps, right? I will tell you my understanding of it, which is going to be different than theirs. But it's, imagine if you took those financial concerns that you might get shoulder tapped about once in a while when things go over, or maybe you haven't spent enough budget, and it shifts them left, and maybe as far left as possible down to maybe thinking about the impact of our financial of like deploying a new VM might be something that we have a shared concern for, as opposed to something that you just throw over the fence. Like finance will deal with this, that kind of thing. So you think about it as you're architecting. You think about the
Oh.
actual cost. That's how I like to think about it. There's a little bit more like there's vendor relations and stuff like that that come into play as well. There's a lot in terms of like contract negotiation. It can become like a big spiraling
Okay.
kind of subject, but the very least, I think that that shared concern about fiscal responsibility, I think, is kind of the core tenet that I took out of it. But let me know. Maybe I'm wrong. If we've got anyone in the audience of zero who wants to let me know, I'd be happy to take recommendations. But it feels like that's the main thing, is like shifting that concern left, and then maybe most people start to think about the actual impact of what they're doing.
Right.
Uh, yeah,
Interesting.
it's pretty sweet.
Huh. Of course, all I, when you asked, all I could think of was the state measure. But then there is something else I've been playing around with quite a bit.
Oh,
And I actually asked you a question offline a little while ago.
right. About AI, I
It's
think.
just about AI tools and about I've kind of gotten into recently. What is the um, what is the way to run to have an AI and you're not sharing that information up to the
Oh,
cloud. So how do you
oh,
run that model locally? And
right,
what are the tools there? And there's a number of tools. There's this GPT for all, and there's
right.
auto GPT, I don't know, something like that. And then there's another GPT for all dash UI, which
Yes,
is unrelated to GPT for all.
yes,
And then there's Cobalt, and then there's
yes.
a whole bunch of other tools that are out there, and all of them run differently, and all of them require lots of knobs and buttons to press to get them to work. And versus open AI's ChatGPT is just like boom, ask your question, done.
Gotcha.
But it's but with the benefit of running it locally is, if you've got a machine beefy enough, then you can ask all your questions and they don't leave, which is
Right.
I was asking somebody else about this recently, and he was like, well, one of the benefits, one of the problems with anything like ChatGPT is, what if you share information that you don't have the rights to share
Right.
about the company? And he
Right.
pointed out a Samsung,
Yes,
something that
absolutely,
happened at
twice.
Samsung.
Yeah, as far as I remember, it happened twice.
Oh, twice.
Mhm.
Okay. So does this
Again,
solve
maybe I
that
read the
problem?
same article twice, but
Yeah.
it was like, yeah, it was 3 weeks apart, and
Oh, wow.
luckily it was twice. Yeah,
Yeah, and I remember when I used to work there, it wasn't an AI tool, but I mean that was the problem with Grammarly. Well, where is it sending this data? And that
right,
was a big problem with that. And so anytime you are working for a company, especially a public company that
right,
is, and it's got lots of sensitive customer data, you don't want to share that with some entity that you're not sure how they're going to use that data. Um, and maybe they will use it in a bad way. And so
yeah.
how can you get all the benefits without having the data leave? And so it's really interesting having these tools that allow you to run these models locally.
So there's a couple things. So there's models, and then there's I think transformers might be the other thing to think about
Hmm.
in terms of what you're actually running. The ones that you mentioned, I have used. What I use locally, and this is again like a safe harbor, or whatever. Like this,
Hmm.
my opinion does not represent Datadogs at
Yeah.
all. Alpaca Electron is what I was using
Mm.
on my personal computer. Can't necessarily recommend Alpaca itself, as like
Hmm.
Alpaca and Llama. There's some licensing,
Right.
maybe we'll say FUD out there, but like it's meant to be for research only.
Right.
So again, take that with a grain of salt. I think GPT for all is based on Llama research.
Hmm.
It's like it's kind of built on the responses from Llama and trained in a very
Right.
rapid time frame because of that. Auto GPT is the one that will actually take next steps for you, which can be a little bit scary.
Hmm.
And then there's a bunch of models. Basically, Hugging Face is kind of a really easy place to go to and find
Right.
models that you can.
Uh,
Yeah,
Easy. I don't know about easy
yeah.
place to go. It's a place you can go and find information, and you will have lots of choices. And
Yes,
will any one of those models work for you? Yeah.
hard to say. I don't want to say it's like GitHub for models, but it's very similar to in that like things can be
It
rated and you
is.
can sort by
Yeah.
popularity, that kind of stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
what I will say though is that the person you're asking like who would I go to for this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So within the team, we certainly got people who are passionate
Right.
about this. The YouTube channel I watch a lot is Matt Wolf, Wolf with an
Oh,
E
yeah.
at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
I'm
future
sure you've heard
tools.
Future Tools, and I'm
Yep.
actually on the newsletter as well. I won't say that he's the best in terms of like technically proficient,
Right.
but in terms of like things to get you up and going easily, is
Yeah.
pretty good at that type of content. Like get you started quickly.
Yeah.
I think it's actually really good, and that's kind of how I found Alpaca
Yeah.
Electron. The next thing is once you've got that GUI, which is like is it Oingo Boingo? I forget the name of this.
Oh,
Ooga Ooga Booga.
Booga. Yeah.
Once you get Ooga Booga running, you can change the models out, like
Yeah.
the UI. You can change those models out and use whatever you want, and then try different ones. Basically, is
Right.
what I recommend. And for generating graphics, Automatic 1111 is what I use. Again, just swapping out the models to figure out like
Hmm.
what needs. And the reason I mentioned transformers is because
hmm
I think if I understand this properly, it depends on what you're trying to do, what the output is. If you're trying to have like a conversational chatbot, that might be one thing. If you wanted to actually generate code for you, that might be something else.
Right.
And similarly, if I'm generating something that's photorealistic as opposed to like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the style. Like I like retro manga style, like really
hmm
CMYK kind of weird Japanese 80s manga style for some reason.
hmm
I really find is nostalgic for me.
Right.
I might pick a different model that's specifically based on like retro anime and safe
Right.
for work might be a nice thing to
Right.
have,
Right.
like those kind of things. So I don't
Yeah.
need anything that's for generative fiction or anything like
Right.
that for novels. Don't need those, but like this is what I want kind of thing. I
Yeah.
feel like being able to do that is way more powerful than maybe a chat GPT. But I will say, and this is maybe where the Datadog opinion comes in, there are ways of using ChatGPT without necessarily leaking info,
Sure.
and I think some of those have to do with one paying them. The other is using the API as opposed to the app. And then if you are using the app, I think every time you use it, you have to opt out of sharing the info, which also means it
Mm.
won't share your session. So in terms of like ways you can use it the way
Right.
it is right now, what I worry about is we talk about Notion a lot, for example. I don't want to put anything company related into Notion.
hmm
Their terms seem to be pretty good about sharing data and things like that, but
Yep.
whether or not they're training their actual app on it is what I worry about,
hmm
and whether or not like I'm influencing stuff going down the
Right.
road. So I don't put anything business related in
Yep.
there for that reason.
Interesting.
And again, I'm sure it's perfectly fine. Same thing for Canva. Canva is what I use to
hmm
generally make those like manga like images because it's got one
Oh,
that's
yeah.
built in.
Oh,
But the
okay.
same thing, I'll say like many buildings together that resemble a cluster of servers, and then it will generate it in like this manga
Uh-huh.
style, and it actually looks kind of cool, like
Cool.
stylized, a little bit retro, that kind of thing, or like clouds, you know,
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
that symbolize things we
Right.
would talk about on a real
Right.
basis, that kind of stuff. But yeah, so Automatic 11 and Ooga Booga are the two that I use, and for
Okay.
Alpaca specifically, Alpaca Electron is the one that I use.
Okay. Cool. I'll check those out.
Mhm. That is all I had. That's a
Yeah.
brain dump.
Yeah.
Shall we find the button?
I think we shall find the button.
Look at
Let's
that.
see if I can find it right here.